Okay guys, so today I'm going to show you two ways to add a background image to any element in Bricks Builder. I'm using Bricks Builder version 1.11. I mention that because things can change. These particular features are unlikely to change, but you never know. So just to be aware, if you're watching at a later time, in a later version, it may be different. Okay, that's it. So the two images I'm going to use, or the two methods I'm going to use. The first, I'm just going to use the standard UI for the style background and then show you how that works. The second I'm going to show you is actually using an actual image element. And they both have pros and cons. So I'm going to talk about the methods separately. So what we have here is a Bricks editor with 0 plugins, just Bricks. And we've got a very basic structure where I've got a section, container, and some content inside there. I've called my section BG image wrapper because I'll add a class a little bit later when we add an image to do this. Initially, I'm just going to do this at the ID level. So on my image wrapper, all I've done in my layout, I've added some padding and set my min height to 70 VH just so we can see stuff. Okay, I might actually change that to be 600 px. That'll do. Min height 600 px because it was doing some funny things with the editor. Okay, hit save on that. Now, what we're going to do here is the first thing we're going to do is select the style and then background. We're going to select an image. In this case, we're going to use this lady photographer. Now, when you insert the image, by default, Bricks selects large as your default size. Now, when we're doing a section here, I would imagine that this might be a hero, for example, and it might be the full width of your screen. So what I would do is I would actually put anything in there, go to the front end, measure what width you've actually got, what height you've actually got, and then create your image and crop your image to those dimensions before uploading it so that you know everything's going to be positioned correctly, your image is well optimized, and away you go. So in this case, I'm just going to tell it to use the full image, which is a unoptimized image from Unsplash. Okay, and you'll see the big difference here as I work through this. So if I save that, have a look at my front end, what I will see is my image section there. I've got this image here as a background image, a CSS background. Okay, and there it is there, and it's almost 320 kilobytes in size, and it is not a separate element, it's just a CSS background. Now, the importance of that is that because it's not a separate element, you can't give it any description. You can't put an alt tag on it or an ARIA label. So for a screen reader, it has no idea what that image is, which brings me to my first point. If this image is purely decorative, if it's just a texture, if it's just colors, if it's just whatever lines or whatever you want it to be, it has no relevance to the content. It's just there to look pretty. You don't need to describe it to the screen reader because it's just a visual thing. There's no context to it. If the image is important, in this case, it's this lady. So if I'm creating a website for this particular photographer, I might have a description of that saying, here's a background image of me taking a photograph with my Sony whatever camera. Okay, so then it describes it to the visually impaired person. I know what this kind of looks like. I know what the context is, and that relates to the other content there. It makes sense to have an alt tag or an ARIA label to do that. If it's just a bunch of flowers and just to look pretty, then maybe you don't need to describe it. So that's the first problem we've got with doing it this way, just using a CSS background. Second problem is if we just scroll down, we get down to say, for example, our mobile, I think it's 478 on Bricks as the default. So if we go lower than our mobile portrait breakpoint, it still has to download a 320K image, even on a mobile. So for performance, very, very bad. Very, very bad. You do not want it to be downloading a 300K image to display as a background at the top of your mobile. Your page speed scores, your core web vitals are really going to suffer, and it just doesn't make any sense. Okay, so it's simple to resolve though. All we have to do is while we're in the Bricks Builder, just go to the breakpoint that you want to change. I'm just going to do the mobile portrait for this one. Mobile portrait, what we're going to do here is we're going to select an image. I'm just going to select that same image of the lady. In this case, I'm going to change the size to be a maximum width of, so what do we say? It's 478. So we want something bigger than 478. Bricks medium, 600 wide. Pick that. Hit save. Okay, now let's have a look at that. So when we're above 478, we have a 320K image, which again, you'd optimize. When we go below 478, we have a media query here where we're setting our background image to this version here, which is only 24K. All right, so that's how you would change the actual image it's going to use at the different breakpoints. And so it's very, very easy to do. You may also decide, well, you know what, that image doesn't work for me because I can't even see the photographer there. All right, so you might want to change that so that it's a different crop of an image. So when you select the image here, you'd be selecting a different version of that image. It may be just cropping just that lady, the photographer there, and leaving out all this other stuff on the side and use that as your image. So as an example here, I'm just going to pick this one over here because I don't have a crop. Show you what I mean. If I change that image altogether, that's what I see at mobile, and that's what I see above mobile. Pretty simple, straightforward. Okay, so now I'm going to undo all of this because that's the first method. So the pros are it's very, very simple to do. Very easy to change the image that you're using. The cons are you cannot describe that image at all. Okay, get rid of the background. So we're back to where we started. Hit the save so we know we've got a base point. So now we're back to where we started. Method number 2. Select our container. Insert an image element. Now we're going to give a class name to this because we'll use this in more than one place. So I've named this element here BG image wrapper. I'm going to create a class with the same naming, but using the BEM class conventions, which will be all lowercase with a hyphen between words. So I'm going to go BG, what do we call it? Image wrapper. There's my name. Going to copy that to the clipboard, press the enter key. I've got a BG image wrapper. Go to my image. I'm going to paste that class name into there. I'm going to do 2 underscores and then the word image. So that makes my image an element. So the 2 underscores means it's an element of that BG image wrapper. Okay, so it relates those two together, which if you're going to style with CSS makes super sense. Even just going through, this gets more complicated and you start looking, you go, okay, I'll look at that one. This image element is belonging to that BG image wrapper. So it just makes sense to name them that way. All right, so heading to I'm just going to refresh this because it's saving some old styles. So I was playing around with this to get it right, and with Bricks, even when you delete the classes, the styles remain in memory, so I forgot about that. So I've just refreshed. So what we're going to do is go to our BG image wrapper. Common trap when you're working in Bricks, always look to the top left here. Make sure, if you want to style a class, you got to make sure that class is selected and showing up in yellow up the top here. Otherwise, you style it ID, which doesn't work if you're going to use this in multiple places. So we've got the image wrapper selected. We're going to go to our style tab, go to our layout tab, and we're going to set our position of our wrapper to relative so that when we absolutely position our image, it's within that container. And then we're going to set the isolation to isolate. And that's all we need to do on that. On there, we can actually use an overflow hidden. Do we need that? Do we need that? I think I might, because I'm going to show you something else a little bit later. So I'm going to do overflow of hidden. Okay, that's it. And then we go to our image element. Again, make sure the image class is selected. On the image element, we're going to set our width to 100%, our height to 100%. We're going to set the position to absolute, and we're going to put our top left, bottom, and right to zeros. If you're doing CSS for this, you just type the word inset 0, does the same thing. Bricks doesn't have an inset property here. And ZNX, we're going to set that to -2. And now our image element now disappears behind our content. And the reason it doesn't disappear behind the section is because we set the isolation to isolate, which means don't put anything behind me. So I can put negative 1 million z-index on that. It will not disappear behind that section because that's my isolation container there. Okay, that's it. And then we go to the actual image. On this image, we want to set a few things here. So first we'll select the image. So we'll select that lady photographer again. There she is there. And we make sure that we set it on full. And then what we're going to do is make sure our object fit is set to cover so that it doesn't squash the image when it's fitting in there. So if you just change the width and height of an image, it'll squash it. Set the object fit to cover and it will actually just make it fit within that box with it and crop it basically. So that's it. What else do we need to do on here? Okay, so that is our first image for using the image element as a background. And technically, if we look at the front end, it looks the same. It looks exactly the same as what we did before, right? But if we look at the actual section, it no longer has a background image. We have an image element here. Okay, it's just a basic image element with our source image, and then we have a bunch of source set automatically added. So at the different breakpoints, we will get a different image. So if I go there and I point at that image now, what I'm seeing now is an image that will actually be for, what have we got here? I can't see these here. So under 300, under 768. So this image here will be the one that's displayed, which, sorry, the title's in the way, but it'll drop down that to a different size, okay? So that automatically happens for you, but what's beautiful in here is that you can actually affect that. So with Brex, that is your base image. If you want a different image at a different breakpoint, you don't use the breakpoints up here because that's for CSS. We're not changing the CSS, we're changing an attribute, which is the image source. Okay, so what we need to do is click on the add source, and we want to set our breakpoint, and I'll show you a problem actually doing this. So if I go mobile portrait, I'm going to select an image, I'm going to select exactly the same image, and with that image, I'm going to say when it's mobile portrait, I only want the one that's 600 wide. Okay, I'm going to add another one, which will be the mobile landscape. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this image. We're going to select that one there. And we're going to set that to landscape. We want it to be, say, 768 wide. Save on that. And look at the front end. That didn't update. Why didn't you update? Save or you refresh that. So we still look the same, except for what we have. Now when we look at that image, it's turned it into a picture tag and we have two source images. Now these have a query in them, so it's saying that's the image we're going to display up to 478 pixels, and this is the one we're going to display up to 768. All right? So if you have a look now, and we go in there, so that's one there, and you'll see I'm swapping to my image there with the birds, but when I get down to here, it's not changing properly. Or did it? Let's have a look here. Let's mobile portrait. I selected the same image. So let's select a different image, and we'll see that that image is our desktop. We get down to our mobile landscape, the image changes. Get down to our mobile portrait, and the image changes again. So let's go back to that, and I'll show you one thing that is a bit of a trap. This shouldn't be allowed to happen, but you can actually reorder these. So if you did these in the wrong order and you set your landscape, so your wider one and then your narrower one there, it will not work. What will happen is you'll get to from your desktop to your mobile landscape, you're down at mobile portrait, but you're still seeing the mobile landscape image, right? And that's because of the order that the queries are operating in. it changes. I won't go into specifics of that, but what you want to do is make sure that these are in the correct order. So it's your narrowest through to your widest. Okay, so that's the mobile portrait's the narrowest, mobile landscape's the next one up. And if I wanted to do a mobile tablet portrait, I would put that there in that order. Any other order, it will not work properly. Okay, so that's the beauty of this. You can change images, you can control those images at the different breakpoints. Right, now, the benefit of doing this is the control you get. So on this image here, I can call this image here. So I go to my image there, and I'm going to set that as a background image of me taking a, background image of me taking a photo. Let's have a look at that. So what we have here is we have a picture. And on our image here, we've got background image of me taking a photo. All right. But we don't have that on these. I'm not sure how that's going to read that with a screen reader, whether we need to change that. So we might need to, this is me not knowing how the screen readers are actually going to read it. So I'm going to grab that there, and my mobile portrait, actually we don't have the option. So it must read, the screen reader must read the alt tag off the original image, even though the source image is different. So there you go. So we put our custom alt text on there once, or the alt text that came with the image that's in the WordPress library, media library. And we have now a really, really flexible system where we can change what images is displayed at the different breakpoints. And we've got an alt tag on there. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you, which is a really cool benefit, is the way we can do this. So I'm going to go to that style. Remember over here, I set the, on the wrapper there, I set the overflow to hidden. Right? I'm going to show you something I can do with this. You have to do that at the CSS level, unfortunately. So we're going to go to CSS, and I'm going to do, when on my root, so being my wrapper, when it is hover or focus within, we want to do something here. We want to change it. Okay, actually, let's go to the top here. I'm going to set a couple of properties. I'm going to root. So it's just R tab in bricks, and that gives you a root. Making sure you've got your image selected up here. So your class selected up there. I'm going to set some property. I'm going to do a root image scale. Actually, we don't need root, just do image. Image scale of 1.2. Maybe 1.3. Okay, and we're going to do image scale, hover of 1. All right, now what we're going to do is another root, and I like to keep my variables and my application variables separate. So we're going to do root underscore underscore image transition, or I'll just do all. I can do scale, all over 10 seconds with a linear path. Okay. And then we are going to put the scale at var image scale. Image scale. So basically we've set an image scale variable at 1.3. We've set our scale on hover to be, actually put 2 dashes there to keep that as a modifier. Just mentally, I do this whether it's a class or a variable. So we want the image scale to be 1.3. We want the scale of that image to be the image scale, and then on hover, I just grab these two here and paste that there, equals var Okay, so let's see if that works. There we go. See her moving? So all I've done is in the background here, okay, hover, and we've got moving picture. Out of the moving picture, hover, out, in, out. Okay, so because this is an actual image, what we're doing is we're telling the container or the wrapper to set the overflow to hidden. We're telling that image to scale 3 times its normal value so that it's blown up. And then when we hover over, we're telling it to return that back to a scale of 1 with some simple CSS here. So by using the image background, what we're getting is alt tags. We get a picture where we can set the source, and that can be any different source, any type of source you want. And then we can animate that image however we want, just by using a little bit of simple CSS. So I think there's benefit to using the image background when you have something that you want to either transition or animate, or if you have something that's relevant that you need to stick a alt tag on. That's my take on this. I hope that makes sense and helps you guys with the decision on how to do this. And I hope you can use this going forward. But I'll just show you one last thing, which is, let's say, for example, here we go a new section. Okay, there's a new section, and on that section, I'm just going to ID level as a layout. I'll put the height of, say, 400 px on that section. We're going to then stick a image, stick some other copy in there. So maybe heading, basic text, rich text, text link, just some stuff in there. Let's set that to row gap of, I don't know, 3 rem. We've got some space there. And on our section, we won't bother putting padding on there. Yes, we will actually. Let's do padding of 8 rem. 8 rem. And 1 rem on the side. So we got some spacing around it. All right. So how do we make this one now behave the same as the other one? Simple. We get on our section, we add our BG image. Our BG image wrapper. There's our wrapper. An image. There's our image there. Okay, and we're going to pick an image. Oh, I don't know. Well, let's go with these birds. There's some birds, and we'll make that our full size. And we then simply BG image. There it is there. We now have a background image behaving exactly the same as the other one. Okay. Save. The first one, there's our second one. So by making a class, you can reuse it multiple times. If you're going to use it a lot, you would probably, maybe take some of the stuff out and just right click and save it as a template and then just insert your template. If it's just a couple of classes, you can just create the section, create the image, add the classes, and then away you go. All right, so that is it. I will leave it at that, and I hope you guys get some value out of this. And if you like this sort of thing, hit the subscribe, hit the like. Thanks for listening.